Story of Abraham and Isaac we hear in today's first reading is rough. For some reason, this story is included in collections of Bible stories for children. Let's be clear, though, this story, especially when paired with last week's story about Abraham, is brutal. Last week, Abraham sent an enslaved woman he raped and the son born of that rape off into the wilderness to die. This week, we hear that Father Abraham, God's chosen one, the foundation of Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, not only tried to kill his firstborn through exposure for being illegitimate, but also tried to kill his legitimate heir through child sacrifice. Abraham was a horrible father. Now, we can look into the culture into which Abraham was born and say, well, he was not an outlier. Food and water in the Middle East were and are precious and unpredictable resources. If the wind did not blow right at the right time of year, there was no water for crops and famines broke out. People died. Entire villages would be wiped out. In January and February, my sons flush ice cubes down the toilet in a ritual to try to ensure that there are snow days. In ancient Middle East, when the rains did not come, the people made sacrifices. They started with animals, which on the one hand served as a prayer to their deities, but on the other hand also meant smaller herds being kept alive and some extra food available in the short term. As things became more dire, however, the Bible and other ancient sources record that firstborn sons would also be sacrificed across the board. From the crown prince to the poorest peasant, the firstborn would be killed, again, in part to try to win the favor of the gods, but also to try to keep the populace as a whole alive. And so, yes, what Abraham proposed to do was something that was being done around him. Abraham really was not a worse father or human being than his contemporaries, and there are injustices and cruelties in our society that the ancient world would surely condemn. But that does not mean that trying to murder Isaac or abandoning Ishmael and Hagar to the wilderness was a moral choice. Knowing that Abraham was so flawed and yet was God's chosen one, therefore presents a challenge to our understanding of justice and righteousness. Why would God have chosen an immoral and flawed person to be the ancestor of his chosen people? Well, again, everyone is flawed. We all have moral failings. Abraham was a man of his time and place. He proposed to do horrific things. And yet, there are two things that made Abraham different. First, there is the story from 2 weeks ago. Abraham welcomed the stranger. When the three men visit him at a time and place when he is living alone in the middle of nowhere with just his family, slaves, livestock, and other household members, and when he does not know if the rain will come the next year, he nonetheless invites these three strangers in. And he slaughters the fatted calf for them. So not only does he welcome them, but he welcomes them as if they are honored guests or close relatives, despite appearing as just travelers in the wilderness, men on the verge of starvation or dehydration. But that is not the only thing that Abraham does. Abraham also keeps in relationship with God. Abraham sent Hagar and Ishmael out only after praying and talking it over with God. And God provided for Hagar and Ishmael, such that they were not merely saved from death, but became the founders of a great people themselves. And in today's reading, we hear this continue. The cultural norm was for Isaac to be killed for the good of the community, but Abraham's hand was halted. Abraham is able to hear that the one God is different from the other deities. The one God desires the welcoming of the other and the compassion for the outcast, not the slaughter of innocents. And this is not an easy message for us as humans to hear. We want to be on the side of the winners. It is fun to bask in the glow of the rich and the powerful. Life is easier when we do not have to worry about food or clothing or ensuring that our children are comfortable. But our role is to be among the poor and the powerless, to welcome God in our midst, and to give cups of cold water to the thirsty. Amen.